nobody really likes Mondays. I mean, everybody's Garfield when it comes to Mondays. I hate Mondays. Some Mondays are a little less fun than others, though. When you do a podcast and it's every Monday during the football season, you do Monday thoughts on Saturday's game, and you end up having to talk about a game like the one we saw on Saturday in the 108th edition of the Backyard Brawl, I think it was. Well, that's a little less fun to talk about. That Monday is not. That Monday's extra unpleasant compared to what other Mondays are. But this is what we do every week of the season. After a game, we talk about it on Saturday after the game. We talk about it on Monday after the game, and then we talk about it pretty much throughout the week. And Pitt's loss to West Virginia in overtime on Saturday in Morgantown certainly gave us plenty to talk about. The Panthers fall to the Mountaineers in a game where they absolutely lost it. That's not to say West Virginia didn't win it. That's not to take anything away from the Mountaineers and Rich Rodriguez's return to the Backyard Brawl and all those different storylines that we heard about and talked about all week long. It's not to take anything away from West Virginia, but Pitt lost this game pretty much in all three phases, least of which being the special teams, but they still missed a field goal. And when you have a game that goes to overtime, every little bit counts. Every little mistake, everything that either contributed to the other team scoring or contributed to you not scoring in any specific instance is all going to be huge. Whether it's Trey Bukowski missing a field goal, whether it's Javon McIntyre failing to make a tackle behind the goal line for a safety, any of those things. You get an extra 3 points there. You get an extra 2 points there, and you're winning the game. But the reality is this game was, we can find a lot of those moments, but there were bigger moments throughout this game where Pitt blew it. And that's just what it comes down to. There's not really another way to say it. I mean, we can find lots of other ways to say it. Pitt threw up on itself. Pitt imploded. Pitt did, dumb things. Pitt, lost by doing the things smart teams don't do. There are lots of ways to say it, but when it comes down to it, Pitt blew that game in Morgantown when they had it. They had the win. They had a 10-point lead, late in the fourth quarter. They had plenty of opportunities to protect that lead. They had plenty of opportunities to retake that lead, and they blew it. And now they're 2-1, and they've got, I think it's not unreasonable to say they have more questions than answers at this point in the 2025 season. Fortunately for Pitt, they've got a week off to discuss those questions and try and find some of those answers. Now, we've got a week off to try and discuss those questions and find some of those answers. We're not going to take a week off. We'll have Morning Pitt episodes every day of the week, this week and next week. We'll have our live show every Wednesday night, and we'll be ready to go for the live post-game show after the Louisville game in 2 weeks. But for now, it's all about the Backyard Brawl. What happened in Morgantown? How did Pitt lose that game? There's some big points to hit on, and we're going to hit on them, all of them today here on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Monday here on the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Our Monday episodes during the season are always of the Monday thoughts on Saturday's game variety, and of course, Saturday's game here is a loss. Pitt's first loss of the season. I think we all knew that defeat was coming, and it was sort of inevitable that when that defeat happened, it wasn't going to be something you would feel good about. There are very few losses that you would ever really feel good about. I think probably the best loss I can remember, there are a couple. The 2019 Penn State game, for as angry as the outcome of that game made everyone and sort of the way it went down with the field goal, from the one or whatever it was, there was plenty to argue about with that and be mad about with that game. But the reality is Pitt played its tails off in that game. They put in a valiant effort. It wasn't a bad loss. They took Penn State down to the wire. And the Notre Dame game in 2018 is one that I always think of as being a pretty good loss, all things considered, and a loss that I think Pitt was able to take some confidence and optimism out of. But even those games, there was enough dumb stuff that happened that we had lots to argue about and complain about in the days after it and the weeks after. So there aren't really many losses that are going to make you feel good. There aren't many losses that are going to instill confidence or optimism or make you feel like it's a real push forward, a leap forward to greater heights. But there are also losses that are on the other extreme end of that equation, of that spectrum, I guess would be the word I'm looking for, that make you just really question everything that you thought you knew. And it's not like, oh, you got upset by a terrible team, although I do think Pitt is a better team than West Virginia. Generally speaking, we'll talk about that in a little bit. This is my opening salvo here, and then we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty. But, it's not like, you get blown out or lose to an FCS team or something like that. This is a game that I think, and this is probably, the losses that are the most infuriating are the ones that look like this, where it's a game that you could have won, a game that you probably should have won, a game that was right there for you to win, but through your own, for lack of a better word, stupidity, you blew it. You blew it. And instead of being 3-0 with a win in the Backyard Brawl, taking 3 out of 4 in this series, their first win in Morgantown since the 2007 game, the 13-9 game, instead of going into the off week with some positive momentum like that, you're now left, and probably should be, questioning every part of your team. And there are very few parts of this team that aren't worth questioning in the wake of that loss. Now, like I said, we're going to have a whole week to dissect some of the bigger picture questions about this team. And so we'll talk about what areas of the team do need to be questioned and be, potentially revisited in terms of personnel and who's getting played and when they're going to, whatever. For today, it'll be about that game against West Virginia, because more than personnel in terms of did you have the best players on the field, or should this guy play more, or should that guy touch the ball more, or whatever it is, there was just a lot of dumb stuff. They lost that game because of a lot of dumb reasons, largely their own actions. Second drive of the game, Pitt's got 3rd and 3 at the West Virginia 42, right? You're marching. You're in good position. Desmond Reed, breaks a run outside, picks up 8 yards. You're now inside the 35. I mean, you are knocking on the door of field goal range, and your offense is moving. You're in good shape, except Blue Hicks pushes a guy in the back. A block in the back that he probably didn't even need to make to spring Desmond Reed for that run. He was getting at least a first down, if not more, and he ultimately got 8 yards, and he would have gotten it without Blue Hicks doing that. Panthers, I think maybe said something after the game about whether or not, I think Panthers complained about some of the calls after the game, and I'm sure that's one that probably would have bothered him. But he had his hands on the guy's back. Don't do that. Now they took themselves out of field goal range. Or took themselves away from being closer to field goal range, and they end up punting because instead of a first down, it ends up, replaying 3rd down. And here you are. You're punting instead of scoring. Next drive, they're marching even further. They get a little bit stuck. It's 4th and 5 from the West Virginia 29. Narduzzi decides to be aggressive. He goes for it. Eli Holstein, one of his better plays on the day, steps up, makes escapes pressure, steps up, makes a throw to Malachi Thomas. Great catch. Yards after the catch, gets 22 yards. The ball is now at the 7. They are rolling. Here come the Panthers. Oh, wait. Here comes Lyndon Cooper. And as the pile-up tackle is happening on Malachi Thomas, Lyndon Cooper, however much he weighs, 290 pounds of him, comes jumping in like Superfly Snuka onto the pile. Why would you do that? What did you hope to gain from that? You want to help your teammate? Just help peel guys off the pile. Don't jump on the pile, because now you've taken a 15-yard penalty for unnecessary roughness. Instead of first down at the 7, you got first down at they got pushed back to the 22. And now that's still good field position. You should still be able to score a touchdown when you've got the ball at the 22 with a first down. But if you've got first and goal at the 7, you can pretty much just fall forward 3 or 4 times and you're going to get into the end zone. Instead, Pitt has to settle for a field goal attempt, and that was the one that Trey Bukowski missed. All because of a bad penalty. All because of a dumb penalty. 3 drives later, they got 1st and 10 at their own 42. They're starting a drive, right? They're coming out. They're starting a drive. It's out of a commercial break. First play of the drive. They're at their own 42. It's great field position to start your possession. And they can't even get lined up right. I think they might have had 2 tight ends on the field or something. Guys go in motion. The ball gets snapped before they're set. They lose 5 yards. They end up punting 3 plays later. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Second half. Third drive of the second half, Pitt's got it down 3rd and 3 at the West Virginia 7. Here they are at the 7 again. They've inside the 10. They're in the red zone. They're inside the 10, 7 yards away from a touchdown. They bring in Deuce Spann to run a Wildcat. Okay, that's a decision. First time of the year. You want to get a little bit silly with it. It's 3rd and 3. Okay, go for it. And hey, look, he springs it. He gets 6 yards. First down at the 1. Coming back on a hold on Justin Holmes. Now, maybe Holmes' block or maybe Holmes' hold was the reason that Spann was able to pick up 6 yards. And so without that hold, maybe he doesn't get 6 yards, but he probably gets at least 3 or very, very close to a first down, close enough that you can come out and try and sneak it to get the first down and first and goal at the, whatever, the 4 or the 5 or something. But instead, they get pushed back and they have to kick a field goal. Next drive. 3rd and 1 at the West Virginia 15. You're in great shape. Like, you are rolling. This is where you need to be after another interception, because that last drive with the Deuce Spann Wildcat was brought on by an interception. You get another interception. Now you get the ball at the 15. You got 3rd and 1. This is money. You are in great shape. You are about to put this thing away until Keith Gouveia jumps, the left guard. Now you're back. 3rd and 6 at the 20. Okay. It's not good. It's not as good as 3rd and 1 to 15, but it's manageable. It's doable. 3rd and 6 at the 20. Like, you can even look at this as a 4-down territory type of situation. Plus, you're in field goal range, so it's okay. But like, you shouldn't have to settle for a field goal. You'll be all right here. You can get a touchdown. 3rd and 6 from the 20, and then Gouveia jumps again. This is a senior offensive lineman, a transfer who came in who played a lot at Richmond, and he jumps twice, back to back. And 3rd and 1 at the 15, turns into 3rd and 11 at the 25. You know what happens? Trey Bukowski has to kick another field goal. And all of these things, so, they got points out of those 2 interception drives. But all of these things are, relevant because you had to settle for a field goal after interceptions gave you the ball in great field position deep in West Virginia territory, and you blew it both times with stupid penalties. And in a game that goes to overtime, that's all extremely relevant. Don't be stupid on just one of those occasions and you get a touchdown and the game doesn't go to overtime. It's just dumb. And this was a big part of the reason why Pitt's offense was so bad in the red zone. Officially, I think if you look at their official box score, they had 6 red zone attempts and they scored on 5 of those 6. Okay. That's true. But 3 of those 5 scores were field goals. So really, you had 6 red zone attempts, but you scored 2 touchdowns on 6 red zone attempts, which is not good. It's terrible. And actually, I think it's even worse because you know what I would do? I would count the Malachi Thomas catch that got the ball to the 7 before Lyndon Cooper's penalty sent it back 15 yards. I would count that as a red zone situation, a red zone opportunity, because you had the ball in the red zone. You achieved the red zone. The ball was down in Pitt possession inside the 20. Hell, it was inside the 10. But this penalty pushes it back. And now, I would count that as a red zone opportunity as well. So really, if you ask me, they had 7 shots from the red zone. 7 drives that reached the red zone. And they scored 2 touchdowns. How do you lose a game? How do you go to overtime against an inferior opponent? I don't care if you're on the road. I don't care if it's a rivalry. You want to know how? You do dumb stuff like that. When we talked last week, we talked about how could Pitt lose this game. It was, mistakes. If Pitt made mistakes, they could blow this game. I was on West Virginia radio. These guys that I talk to every year to preview the Pitt-West Virginia game. It's great. We have a great time because we all appreciate and love the brawl. We all get excited about it. We all like talking about Pitt-West Virginia. And they were very pessimistic. They were like, Chris, Pitt's a 7-point favorite. West Virginia just lost to Ohio. What needs to happen in this game for West Virginia to win? And I said, look, I think it comes down to Pitt making mistakes. I think Pitt, if they play clean, should be able to win this game fairly comfortably. But if they make mistakes and turnovers, penalties, then that's going to, that's the way you lose a game like this. And that's exactly what happened. 7 red zone attempts. They only scored 2 touchdowns. And almost every time they failed to score a touchdown, whether they settled for a field goal or when they threw an interception in the end zone, It was a Pitt mistake. It was an interception or it was a penalty. And that makes it even more infuriating, I think, than just a normal loss. But I mean, like every loss, if you lose a game, you probably made mistakes along the way, and you probably had these kind of issues and errors and just dumb plays. You blew it at some point, right? But when you have this preponderance of mistakes in crucial situations, just brutally bad decisions and dumb plays and dumb penalties, it makes it even worse. Because when it comes down to it, I think if you went talent to talent, Pitt overall has a better roster. I do. I know, after a game like this, we tend to say everything and everyone is bad, and I think there is a lot of bad. I think there was some bad coaching in that game. I think there was bad decision-making by the players in that game. I think there was poor play from a number of players in that game. But on the whole, I think if you compared roster to roster, Pitt has the better roster. I think Pitt is the more talented team. But in college football, that talent gap is rarely so significant that it's like, idiot-proof, right? And usually the talent gap is close enough that if the more talented team does dumb stuff, they can blow it. And I think that's exactly what happened on Saturday. Pitt should have won that game. They should have won that game by 2 touchdowns. Really. But mistake after mistake after mistake, whether it's penalties, whether it's the interception in the end zone, whether it's the 1, 2, 3, more than a half dozen really bad throws from Eli Holstein. Poor decisions in the pocket. Poor blocking from the offensive line. And you know what? The defense isn't immune here either. As the linebackers show up on the screen there, I don't think the linebackers had a great game in that one. I know Rasheem Biles finished with 14 tackles, but I don't think Biles, Braylon Lovelace, or Kyle Lewis had a very good game. I think the Sharks have a little bit to look at and work on and reflect on after that loss. Pitt's defensive line, and I think Pitt's defense overall got worn down as that game went on. West Virginia ran 90 snaps. Pitt rotated very, very little. I think the only time they rotated Kyle Lewis out was when his hamstring was acting up and they brought in Cam Lindsey. Cruz Brookins missed 1 snap for Josh Garrier after a long catch, and Brookins ran him down and immediately tapped out. And then he came back in. Brookins was probably Pitt's best defensive player, maybe Pitt's best player overall in that loss. But they really didn't rotate much, and I think that wore them down. And, that's a big part of why West Virginia was able to drive the field twice at the end of regulation and score relatively easy in overtime. Because I think Pitt's defense was worn out. But I also think Pitt's defense showed some holes early in the game. I mean, this was a bad game overall for everybody involved with the program. It really was. There isn't really anybody that should come out of that game thinking did a solid job. Junko was okay, I guess. Caleb Junko did all right. Trey Bukowski, missed 1 field goal, but he made his others. So good for him on that. He made 3 field goals. Solid work from a freshman, going into a really tough place to play, a rivalry game on the road and all of that, his first road game. But there's really nobody who should feel all that great about how their game went. Malachi Thomas was pretty solid on his catches. Bryce Yates, shout out to Bryce Yates, big catch from him to what should have been set up a touchdown. I don't think his his play did set up the Raphael Williams' long catch set up the touchdown. Where was Bryce Yates' long catch? Let me just find that real quick. I forget because I feel like that led to the interception. Am I right about that? Let me look. I should know this off the top of my head. No, it didn't lead to the interception. A big catch by... Oh, here it is. It led to a field goal. Because even a 68-yard catch only leads to a field goal. But Bryce Yates, nice play there. Although even that one, I think Bryce Yates. So when you watch when you rewatch Bryce Yates making that catch, he's running down the field. He's sort of going to his left, and he sees he's got a defender coming toward him, and Kenny Johnson's coming from his right. So he cuts back to his right to sort of run the defender into Kenny Johnson. Smart. But then he cuts back again to his left, where the defender just has to run away from Kenny Johnson and kind of track him down and make the tackle. I feel like if he had kept cutting to his right, let Kenny Johnson take that defender, he could have gone up the middle of the field and scored. But They ended up getting they got a field goal. So there. You want to find another play that could have been the difference in the game? Bryce Yates scores on that instead of, and I don't mean to harsh on the guy getting a 68-yard catch. That was a pretty big play, one of the best plays in the game for Pitt. But they needed a few more yards so they could get the touchdown, not settle for a field goal, win the game, and not go to overtime. But they did so many things in that game to allow it to go to overtime and ultimately lose that they deserve to lose. You know, like that was deserve doesn't have anything to do with it, but that was a case where it wasn't like the more deserving team lost or the team that deserved to win ended up losing. No, they deserved to lose, and they got exactly what they deserved. Now, they got to figure out how to fix it. Fortunately for them, not that they're going to listen to any of these, we will spend the rest of the week talking about how they can try to fix it and get better and improve when the season starts back up again in 2 weeks. Pitt hosts Louisville at Acrisure Stadium. All right. It was not a good weekend for football in the city of Pittsburgh, but at least we all have something to talk about. And you know what? At least we all have each other. I think everybody said that on the post-game show. Nobody was happy, but at least everybody was hanging out together. So we had a good time with that. Make sure you tune in for the post-game shows. Those are always fun, even in the wake of a loss. And so look forward to that after the Louisville game in 2 weeks. In the meantime, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you never miss any of our Pitt video content. And stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com for all of our coverage of Pitt football in the wake of the loss and the Backyard Brawl. All right. Like and subscribe. Hope you had a great weekend. Have a good Monday. We'll talk to you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.